This is our second video on what we mean when we speak of the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist, and more to the point, how people throughout history have talked about that. In the first video, I read to you from Justin Martyr, and the book that I read from is this book, Documents of Christian Worship, Descriptive and Interpretive Sources. And this is a compilation by Dr. James White. Dr. White was, who is now deceased, was on the liturgy staff at Notre Dame when I was there, professor of liturgy and a Methodist minister. This is an extremely valuable resource that Dr. White has made available to us, published by Westminster John Knox Press, because what Dr. White does in this book is he gives us excerpts from key documents throughout Christian history, from the beginning of the movement up until the late 20th century, key excerpts from key documents, both theological, liturgical, comments on the liturgy, in the case of architecture, actual photographs of architectural spaces, showing us how the Christian liturgical tradition and its understanding has evolved. So this is a very useful book to have on your shelf. In the first video, I mentioned that Justin Martyr simply took the notion that Christ was present in the Eucharistic food and drink for granted without any further explanation, that it simply was stated as what Christians experienced and believed. By the middle of the 4th century, that is to say by the middle of the 300s, Christianity had become legal and had even become the official religion of the Roman Empire. As Christianity moved out of being a rather insular sect to being a very public religion, and as it moved into the world of the upper classes, where there were a great many people who were very well educated, the church, certain writers in the church, began to try to engage Christian ideas using the philosophy that the people used to make sense of their real world. And at this time, the primary philosophical tool was Plato. Plato was the philosopher of choice, and using Plato's thought, people understood the world. Now, let me tell you how that worked. One of Plato's primary concerns was multiplicity. That is to say, Plato wanted to understand how it is that things in our world that are multiple and different, yet in our minds have commonality and have the same name. Here in my living room, I am looking at a rocking chair, which you cannot see, and here I have a stuffed chair, a comfortable, easy chair. In the corner over there, there's a stool, and here against this wall, there's a bench. All of these things, in my mind, are chairs. Now, how is it that I can see these four very different objects, and yet say, yes, they're very different, but they all are chairs? How? What's going on there that allows me to see the common in what is in things that are not at all the same? Plato said that the way the world works is this: there exists a world that we cannot access, called the world of the ideas, or the world of ideals. And in our lives, it is as if we are chained in a cave, looking at the end wall in the cave. And this is our entire experience of the world, is all of us sitting facing this blank wall in this cave. Behind us, and we cannot see behind us now because we cannot turn around, behind us outside of the cave, that's the real world. That's what Plato would call the world of the ideas, or the world of the ideals. And as things pass in front of the entrance to the cave, there are shadows cast on the wall. We see them, and we take those as the things themselves. And so we see objects, we see people, we see animals. All of that we see in shadow. Now notice, we're not seeing the real things. And what's important to keep in mind here is that what we are seeing on the wall is not a figment of our imagination. Those shadows are real, and moreover, they are caused by, they are related to, they participate in, would be the word Plato would use. They participate in these real things that are outside of the cave. So when I see the elephant walk by on the wall, in fact, there really is an elephant out there that is causing this. And what I am seeing tells me something and allows me to relate to the elephant, even if I cannot turn around and see the elephant directly. These things in the real world, Plato called antitypes. And the things in the real world are called types. So all of the chairs in my room here are types of the antitype, which is this ideal chair that exists in the realm of the ideas behind me, of which these things are only shadows. Now, we do not see reality at all this way. But we have to move outside of our world and into this other world, into the world where people did see the world this way, realizing that their way of seeing the world is not incorrect, it is merely different than ours. Given that they did see the world this way, and given that they were asking this question, how is it that we believe, how is it that Jesus is present in this food and drink, even though Jesus we know exists in glory? They used the philosophy of Plato, and they began to say, the Eucharistic food and drink are types. And the body of Christ, the glorified body of Christ, is the antitype. And so when we partake of the Eucharistic food and drink, we truly are partaking of the presence of Jesus. Not the physical presence of Jesus, which of course is in glory, but the real presence of Jesus. That what we have in our world truly participates in the actual life of Jesus. It is not merely happening in our mind. In our mind, we can grasp it. That's how we know that this thing is related to Jesus, because we can grasp it in our minds. But the truth is, it really is related to Jesus, just as the shadows on the wall are really related to the things that are going on outside the cave. Now let me read you from Cyril of Jerusalem, who wrote in the middle of the 4th century, and you'll see how he uses the language of type to understand what we mean when we say that Jesus is present in the bread and wine. Cyril writes, "Therefore, with fullest assurance, let us partake as of the body and blood of Christ. For in the type of bread," you notice the type-antitype language, "for in the type of bread is given to you his body, and in the type of wine his blood, that you, by partaking of the body and blood of Christ, might be made of the same body and the same blood with him." So, let me read that again, and notice again the use of the Platonic notion of type. "Therefore, with fullest assurance, let us partake as of the body and blood of Christ. For in the type of bread is given to you his body, and in the type of wine his blood." So now we see the church moving a step beyond Justin Martyr. The church is not using this language to prove that Jesus is present in the Eucharist, or that Jesus is accessible when we celebrate the Eucharist. It is merely using this language as a way to talk about what the church believed from the very beginning, because we see in Justin the assertion that Jesus is present, and now we see in Cyril of Jerusalem a new way of talking about what we mean when we say that Jesus is present. So this is the first stage in the evolution of a philosophical way of talking about what we mean when we say that Jesus is present in the Eucharist. In the next video clip, we will move now into the Middle Ages, where Plato falls out of favor and the philosopher of choice is Aristotle. And we will see how the people of the Middle Ages came to use Aristotle to explain or to describe the presence of Jesus, just as the people of the patristic era used Plato.